going on down there?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final WTF at TFW. That's about the official Transformers trading card game. Wouldn't it be super screwed up, Aaron, if this was the final episode of the podcast ever? Just this weird one-off little thing about our card game?
That's what you sold it on me like 20 minutes ago. Is that
I just really wanted you to come in here because I knew you were busy. You have a new computer you're building, etc.
Yeah.
Aaron?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
They killed our fucking game, Aaron!
Yeah.
I should mention, we are recording on September 28th, 2020. The game's death was announced, or the game's official death was announced in like what was it, July 10?
Yeah,
June?
it's been a bit that we've been watching the corpse slowly fester and bloat.
So this is a special WTF at TCG, which I have entitled Finale Premiere, because it's the finale of Chapter 1 and the premiere of Chapter 2 in multiple ways. But we're going to open up by talking about our freaking... So, Aaron, neither of us have gotten to play Wave 5 yet.
Correct.
And we could play on Octagon, we could play on webcam. I have not made the time to play on Octagon, and I have not made the space to play on webcam, and I've always mentioned, and I'll keep mentioning, folks like, very specifically, Cameron, for our arbitrary hero, has very patiently, multiple times gotten me set up to play on Octagon, so I have no excuse.
That's another thing I just have to set up on this computer.
Yeah, Aaron also just had to reinstall Windows, so Aaron has a great excuse.
That's more than just reinstall Windows, but yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 finally announced what their required specs were, and everything I had was like a step or two behind the minimum requirements, which I figured was going to happen. So it was like, hey, let me throw like $1,500 at. I kept the case and the power supply, and the CPU fan, except for it now runs a lot harder, so I have a new giant behemoth of a CPU fan coming tomorrow.
I'm so shocked you got a new computer just to play Octagon and Cyberpunk that I remembered to turn my air conditioner off.
Yeah.
And I took a big gulp of water because I figured you'd have more to say about that.
For fun. No, I was looking for an Amazon link to show you the Mondo cooler that I'm getting.
Well, before you start showing me all the friggin' cool tech you're getting to play Transformers TCG on Octagon, what all went down, for those of you who just listen to these because they're on either my YouTube page or the WTF feed, the game had Wave 5 come out. We did spoilers with Wave 5. Wave 5 was out for like a month, maybe?
Yeah.
A couple months. And people, were primarily playing on webcam, folks who were way into the game. And then the announcement came out that was the final wave. There was a little goodbye message that was not from anybody specific. It had a quote from Drew Nolosko at the bottom, but it was a goodbye message written not by him, just quoting him. And that was it. They also have now taken down... They gave a warning, but they've taken down the Energon edition from their store, which leads to question what's going to happen with all those. And a lot of folks who still have not gotten the foil versions of the expensive battle cards that were supposed to be a separate thank you gift that went with that, have started getting worried and have been sending, apparently, emails. And some people have also apparently started getting them, the all-out attacks and tandem targeting systems. So the game kind of went out with a bit of a fart, because by all accounts from people who were playing a lot of the game, Wave 5 was also a touch broken in some places and left the game in a somewhat unbalanced state where the Decepticons were suddenly extremely powerful, which I don't mind because they've been on the back step for like 2 waves. So, that's their final revenge. They got more powerful and they got so powerful they killed the game. And you know what? One of them was Sky Shadow, a Phase 6er. So it's all in character. It's all canon. But my understanding is Sky Shadow and Horrible are extremely difficult to deal with when they are in a deck built to just, pang you with direct damage. And apparently Blue Pips are completely worthless in a high-level metagame right now, if you're only playing with up to Wave 5. So, a little bit rickety. And it was cited that the reasons why the game is going away is that it did well, but didn't quite do well enough. And between that and the COVID-19 pandemic that is strangling a lot of in-person interactivity across the world, the Transformers TCG was something that fell off the chopping. It didn't even get chopped; it just fell off the chopping block.
Yeah.
I have some extra theories, but before I get into those, Aaron, that was a day, wasn't it? That was the day right after I streamed opening my first box of Wave 5, Aaron.
Yeah, that was a day. I've seen a lot of people. I'm still on the Facebook group and everything, and I've seen a lot of people like fired up at the old Hasbro and WotC killing everything. All of the horrible things that can be said. It's definitely a case. Anytime that we talk to the folks at Wizards, like, they were into it. It wasn't like it was some other, some side project to them.
Oh yeah. But
all of them really dug it, and
they aren't the ones making a decision like this.
Right.
Also, is worth mentioning.
That's also one of those things that's 8 layers up, probably maybe like 6 layers up from Drew, who was the brand manager of the damn thing.
Yeah.
And especially with unprecedented times with the global pandemic, it's got to be hard, even on the soulless accountant side that's solely beholden to shareholders sitting there looking at like, hey, we've invested X amount of money and time into this thing, but all of the numbers are saying like it may not be safe to be in the presence of other random people for 3 to 5 months, even still at this point.
It's 6 months at this point, and I'm not going to swerve the podcast in a certain direction, but depending where you live,
yes,
it could be for a foreseeable short-term future.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
So in like June, July, they had to say like, what's the over under on 2020 being a year that anything can get done? Okay, well, with the schedule, you'd be putting out 2 more releases, and they rolled back a lot of Magic the Gathering stuff.
Yeah,
and if there was a brand that should be relatively bulletproof, the long-standing Magic the Gathering brand sitting there going,
well, specifically, it was Magic the Gathering's production that got affected, and here's what I'm going to say. Here's my first theory. And it's a theory only because, like, we will never know, because they as a company have no reason to ever lay this out, because there's no profitable motive to do so. But specifically in this time frame, Magic the Gathering Jumpstart, which was a huge project or product for them. It was a more entry level. It was a consumer friendly entry level product that didn't involve wading into the nightmare of any established Magic the Gathering format. And that thing, that set got affected by COVID-19 as far as production. And I believe that in a crunch situation where they can't produce a new Magic product, that is probably 30 to 45% of the reason why Transformers got killed, was to make room in a now throttled production line for Jumpstart, amongst other things. But I think Jumpstart was very specifically a thing that probably affected this, just given the timing of its release and how exciting a product it was being presented as on multiple levels, for casual players, for people who like Magic, and for collectors with its reprints, etc.
The thing is, I'm not even sure I'd put it at the foot of any one thing. I mean,
that's why I'm saying like 30 to 45 in a weird way.
I wouldn't even say that much. Like,
I'm being generous.
I bet. No, I'm saying like maybe if it was between the two of them, Jumpstart's going to come out ahead. But I'm saying in aviation and defense, places where you think that there would be like solid supply lines for the defense of the country against those commies, we've had. Look, we sell Sikorsky helicopters to Canada. You're not a commie yet.
Also, I'm not going to cut in again, but also, I just want to say, I'm not saying it was Jumpstart. That's what killed the game. I have other things also.
But like looking at just like, supply chain of just getting the aluminum. I've seen like issues of like, hey, we're not going to be able to make these deliveries because we can't get aircraft aluminum, which is bonkers to me, that like that material just isn't out there, because it's all it takes is one of those little choke points to have 3 of the 6 people in their shipping department have to call in sick, and you're finding all of these interesting places that stuff gets throttled. So
and another reason I say Jumpstart is just the timing. It happened to be the thing that was in production and getting throttled around abouts when I feel this decision would have been impacted. And also, Magic the Gathering releases 500 products every year.
Yeah,
so one of them getting throttled.
On the other side, all the other people that are artists that we know have done art in previous waves, even before this, said that they hadn't gotten any new stuff. So I don't think it was production. I think that decision was probably made like maybe the beginning of May, and they just kept everything going, so it wasn't it's canceled. Jumpstart wait a month.
Would have been though like in some kind of production pipeline by then, I think.
Right,
but like I said, also I'll change my number 15 to 25% because as you said. And again, none of us actually know. This is all anecdotal stuff that was shot around like Twitter responses or whatnot. Nobody is aware of any art that was made for Wave 6.
Right.
But also, as far as I know, the turnaround on art for Transformers TCG has at times been extremely tight. Especially going by what someone's been posting on Facebook, on the Facebook group. Yeah. So another theory I have, I don't want to keep fast forwarding through these, but the segues have happened. I think Wave 6 exists in an artless form in a folder somewhere. I'm very convinced.
I'm sure that there is at least like a late beta version of Wave 6. And maybe an early alpha version, like concepts and ideas for Wave 7.
I think a printable playable Wave 6 with no art, I am convinced it exists. It might not be fully play-tested, but I am convinced it exists. I'm doing the finger thing even. I'm pinching my thumb and my forefinger.
I would say likely.
Yeah.
But I would not put a guarantee on it.
I'm also convinced, in part, my confidence is boosted slightly by the fact that we will never know if it exists unless they want to pull a real Christmas surprise.
That might be something that pops up once
people have literally retired from the industry.
once people have left Wizards, there might be people that then are out from underneath of NDAs, and they can be like, well, let me tell you what.
None of them are that old. So I don't think that's anything we're gonna be hearing anytime soon. So I'm convinced, especially just given some of the tone in the Wave 5 spoiler talk, which is another weird timeline, because some of the things mentioned during Wave 5 spoilers, like obviously during the promotion for Wave 5, if the decision had already been made, and again, we will never know anytime soon. And I'm saying this a lot also in the hopes that I can like activate Murphy's Law and get a freaking like WotC whistle blow while I'm editing this. But I don't think during Wave 5 spoiler season anyone knew the game was canceled. I think that things were on rocky shores, but sound bites exist that purport to the existence of Wave 6 cards based on stuff that is in Wave 5.
Yeah, my guess is at that time of spoiler season, it was probably one of those things that was on the bubble, and I would weigh heavily on if COVID had actually gone away as rapidly as some people thought it was going to, but nobody with any sort of degrees in science or medicine.
What'd you call me?
It's you're not a Cheeto. That I think if it had gone away rather rapidly and people were back in FLGSs and playing this game, that I would bet would have been a major tipping point. But since that didn't happen, it'd be just throwing bad money after good.
Aaron,
And
you are volleyball teeing me my segues here. Like, I'm not even getting a chance to breathe.
okay.
That is another bullet point. That is another thing I'm thinking. So here, I'm going to say the thing no one... Well, I was about to say, I'm going to say the thing no one likes, except, like, now I've spent a month seeing people talk about the death of the game. People are thinking everything, so whatever. That's also why I'm okay that we spent a while not talking about this. Because, like Aaron mentioned, there were some high emotions. There still are some high emotions, but not nearly as high as that month. And I was just avoiding the conversations because, you know, people were pretty sad, and I think that empathetically, it is a justifiable anger and sadness they were going through, especially in a year that is very hard to go through. So I don't begrudge anyone any of that. I just also think some of them were a little bit off base. I think I had a semi-heated conversation in a Discord channel about the nature of video production at some point. But I think that in 2020, coming out of the Energon Invitational and going into the previews for Wave 5, Transformers TCG was already on a tight, withered tether, a tightrope, if you will, that relied on the active player community and the existence of in-store play and purchase. People buying 2-packs to play, 2-pack booster, etc. And it's not like any hard trackable numbers. I think it was just the hypothetical existence of the in-store experience causing some stores to order product was keeping the tightrope going. The moment stores closed up for a foreseeable season or 3, I think that was in fact the nail in the coffin. I think that the production issues I think that the coffin was already there. I think that the first nail was the closure of gaming stores and in-person play, and I think that the other nail was Magic the Gathering hitting paper production issues, because, as I understand it, Magic the Gathering accounts for not only the colossal majority of WotC's actual income, but as a Hasbro-owned entity, it also makes up the reason why WotC is a blip in the Hasbro pie chart. Magic the Gathering is a colossal moneymaker in the context of what WotC is within Hasbro. So the moment Magic the Gathering's production pipeline was threatened, I believe every other WotC paper product immediately got glared at, and guess which one is the lowest priority? It's Transformers TCG. So I think that is how collectively the game got killed. I think that in a perfect world where there was no pandemic, I still think the game was only going to last about maybe 7 or 8 waves, with the final wave being a limited production orderable item. I think the game would have made it to Energon Invitational 2, and that would have become the game's victorious swan song. Because it's already amazing that we made it to Energon Invitational 1. So I think that and I've talked about this with you and other people, like, the game was not going to go on in absolute perpetuity, but I think that in a kinder 2020, the game would have reached a more natural closure with a wave designed to be a final wave of sorts.
Yeah, so that's very shortly after all of those announcements hit. There's a website, and they still have Rise of the Combiners and Siege 2 cases for $179.
That's that wholesale site, right?
And they don't have Wave 1 cases, they don't have Siege 1 cases anymore, but they also do have individual boxes. So, I mean, I guess you could go and hit the individual box. And
this is also for Americans. This is not for anyone else to participate in. Just I will say grumpily.
It's not stopping me on stock number, so they must not have a direct link to it. But yeah, $55 boxes, $180 cases.
Yeah, a game is shut down, and therefore its organized play is shut down. Stores that are already struggling are going to try to clearance that product out, except for every other country that isn't. Like, no, Europe also, UK, I think, had this. Canada, Canada is just friggin' sitting there like a bunch of friggin' MTG Finance goons. Like, but But yeah, I think that like there are conversations that have been had about like what the game could have done to survive. I don't think there is anything the game could have done to survive what 2020 was.
Yeah,
I'm very certain. And I don't have like professional stuff to back it up, so obviously it's up for debate. I don't have the energy to like really get deep into the stuff. I'm just personally, I don't think there, like, because, you know, for instance, Wave 2, in the retrospect of 5 waves, Rise of the Combiners ended up being like the weakest link of the game as far as desirability, as far as how much fun people had in the long run. Like, the game hit its stride with Siege 1 and 2 easily. And so, you know, the conversation could be like, well, if Wave 2 was better, maybe things would be different. No, I don't think so. I think
to the person that I saw saying that we should boycott the next toy line in order to get Hasbro to bring it back, to bring the TCG back, nah, dog.
The chain doesn't exist for that to actually be, like, on the top level. No one's going to make the connection.
Yeah.
The thing, if you want to
say you've never liked Beast Wars, that's okay. Don't.
Yeah, that's the thing. Also, the next line is Beast Wars, and what did so many of the loudest voices not want? Beast Wars in the card game. I think if you did want to like make any kind of financial statement, what you do is you stop buying Magic cards if you were buying Magic cards.
You're right.
And absolutely, and also, I don't begrudge anyone who still is buying Magic cards. Although I think Magic looks awful right now with the frigging Walking Dead Negan card. But like, for instance, I think Jumpstart looks really cool. But my little protest is I decided I don't want to spend money on Jumpstart.
It's a good thing. I bought a box of it.
Yeah, it looks like it's good, and I don't begrudge Aaron, for instance.
I set it up to be a repeatable little Jumpstart cube.
Yeah, Jumpstart looks fine. Just my little protest was like, well, I'm not going to take my hypothetical Wave 6 money and put it into Jumpstart. I'm putting it into board games made by other companies, because that's my little grumpy thing. Also, I just don't... I like playing Magic. I really don't like Magic as a lifestyle game. I think it's in a terrible state as a lifestyle game. It's just like they put out good products, so it's a shame because there's good products coming out, but there's also just like this unending thunderous sledgehammer of in real life gotcha game nonsense, and I don't have the patience anymore. You know, there's 3 different types of booster packs now in Standard. And it's also, that's another reason why you know what, Jumpstart is great, because Jumpstart is separated from all of that garbage. It's just a fun game you can buy a box of and cube that box, and then you're good. You have Magic Smash Up. But yeah, I don't think that like decisions that would have made, obviously, whenever I've seen conversations about this, everything people are talking about would have made for a better game with more good cards in it, 100%. And or cards that would, you know, have been informed retrospectively by better decisions made in the Siege waves, which are the highlight of the whole game, in my opinion. But I don't think any of that would have saved the game, because I think the game was on a tightrope regardless. I think the game was already doing better than expected. I don't think the Energon Invitational was planned to happen during Wave 1. I think that's a thing that came together off of the game's not inadvertent, but, you know, the game's popularity that was not part of the script. I think the game was popular beyond expectation. I think the game started as a kid-friendly game designed by very good game designers who put in the bricks to play a very good thinking adult game. And I think with the Siege waves, the game mutated itself into a higher life form. And the weaknesses of Wave 1 and 2 are all weaknesses that, to me, kind of tie into a game that was meant to be pick up and playable by 10-year-olds. And be exciting to pick up and play.
Yeah, and that's some of the stuff that I remember from like the first time I talked with Drew at Gen Con, you know, where like the reason why the stars are in chunks of 5 or there's not some number there is because that's a easy visual graphic thing, and it's in 5 because kids count by 5s because you have 5 fingers on each hand. Like there's stuff in the base level of the design that does point at like a younger audience. And like if it had, I don't think that it would have sustained better if it had kept that aim by any stretch of the imagination, because
it would have gassed out. I think
I think it would have gassed out just as soon, or maybe even sooner. But I think that very well could have been where it got like an initial kick, and then like somebody buys the first starter, which wasn't that great, and then like 4 or 5 booster packs, and then calls it a day.
Yeah, I think
there are some places that never like picked up on Wave 1, and then everybody was like, well, crap, Wave 1 did great, and then kicked into Wave 2, which wasn't that great.
I think the popularity of Wave 1 was, like, its actual popularity beyond Wave 2 was entirely because of the staple, the kind of staple function of a lot of Wave 1 battle cards. And a number of those staples, I feel, were all getting reprinted already beyond the ones that probably were, if the game ever made it to rotation, which I do not think in the best case scenario it was ever going to make it to, a lot of those Power Wave 1 cards were hell of going to be on the chopping block for rotation. I'm convinced they would have been replaced with double pip cards that would have had tweaked function to weaken them a lot more to be starless double pip cards, or perhaps even we would have negated those double pip cards and added stars to their replacements, leaving only handheld blaster and shield. What was it? Improvised shield. As it's been so long, I almost forgot improvised shield there. And you know, this is just my viewpoint. I've also mentioned many times that I'm looking at this from a perspective of someone who really recently got back into tabletop in 2018 through till now, in a sort of upward slope of paying attention to stuff. And so my perspective is newer, but I also personally feel like my perspective is also from perhaps a different angle than folks who have been playing TCG stuff and CCG and etc. for like 5-10 years straight. And you know, it's also a Transformers game, so there's like the whole other little side aspect. I think that really also informs the weirdness of Wave 1 and 2, because it's like it's been said, I think, in podcasts and interviews, like the Wave 1 starter, for instance, every retail box product had to have this weird double function of being an attractive, glitzy thing for the kid at Toys R Us, but also an interesting thing for the player, and in some cases, the player base that was manifesting a little bit unexpectedly. I believe that the actual intended life of this game was going to be 2, maybe 3 waves of cards with glitzy boxes, and then that would have been that, and it would have gone down as a footnote of, they did a pretty okay TCG. The Siege waves, I think, are massively deviated from the original roadmap, in a good way, in the best way. In a way that has caused a player base to strive to keep the game alive and in an evolving state. So good decisions were made, and I don't think that better decisions before those decisions would have really changed this roadmap that we've ended up on a whole lot. So, you know, that's kind of a bummer, the whole topic. I should also mention, Aaron, you can confirm this, I'm not really sure, but in case people are wondering, we have reached out to Drew Nolosko, and we've heard nothing, and I did not expect to hear anything, given the nature of what the company is.
Yeah, I'd reached out a couple times to just say, like, hey, if you'd like to talk and give a postmortem, you know, we'd love to hear it. But, yeah, knowing the way that any of that is, and that he's probably now off busy on some other project, and just can't, like, that's probably going to be it until maybe much later down the line.
Also, like in case anyone wants to get mad, don't get mad about this thing. Like, ask yourself this: how does it behoove Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast to do an interview about a game that is dead? It doesn't. Yeah. So, between that and you know, anyone working there, PulseCon just happened. There's so much video you can watch that shows that everyone working at Hasbro who gets near a camera or microphone is quite media trained, and not only uses specific language, but avoids very specific tones. There is no way that talking about the end of the Transformers TCG fits into any kind of approved communication. Yeah. Just in case anyone out there from WotC is listening, we, at least, I don't know, but I'm not gonna speak for everyone. Me and Aaron get it. You know, like we get it. We're not mad. We miss you. We want to have that postmortem, but we get why. And if you want to listen, here's the code, right? Because I'm gonna post this on the Facebook group. Here's the code. We know what you mean if you quietly drop a like on the Facebook post. How's that? Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. And they might not be allowed to even do that. You know, I'd seen on one of the Discords that like folks who had private message conversations with other folks working on the game had reached out after the fact and had heard, just sort of, how do you put, like, they heard sort of canned responses, or not canned as in like a robot was responding, but like, if you messaged like Matt Smith and said, "Hey, well, so how you doing?" He's not going to go like, "Awful! They killed my bait." Like, they're not going to say that because someone's going to screen cap it at some point. Not you, person listening, but hypothetically, someone could screen cap that, put it out there, and then they're out of job. So that there is a reason why, and this is also probably to me the biggest tragedy of all of this. This part of the backbone of this whole game was the incredible communication between its design team and we, the players. And part of why that was incredible is because it was under friggin' WotC and Hasbro. And yes, Magic has stuff, other game companies have stuff that interact with players. But to me, this set felt like something really special. And like, I've seen multiple folks, like some of the really, like folks at Vector Sigma Info who have long histories playing tabletop games, pointing out that this was something really special. And I think that the biggest loss of all of this is that whole organic interaction suddenly vanished. It didn't close a door. It didn't burn a bridge. It literally vanished as though it had never been there. And I think that a lot of the folks on the Hasbro design team, the WotC design team for this game, probably feel the same way as far as that really sucking. I was actually still holding out that by PulseCon, we would have a goodbye letter from the team. It felt like something that fit the tone of the design team, and I thought like maybe it wouldn't say much, but I felt like we would get a little personal, catch you later, and maybe this is what Redacted was. I didn't think we were going to get like Wave 6 as a print and play, although the precedent for that does exist now as of Star Wars Destiny doing print and play after they announced the game was over. So there is an industry precedent now to create print and play stuff for players, but Fantasy Flight Games is also, this might sound weird to tabletop oriented folks. I feel like Fantasy Flight Games is a much shorter tower compared to the Hasbro tower. As far as what it's able to do for players. And Fantasy Flight's already like a very established company name. So this is my long-winded way of saying that, like, to me, the actual true loss that really hurts is losing our connection to that design team. And even if they're working on other games and are at conventions and talking to folks, on record, I doubt they will ever be able to say much other than it was a good game to work on. Mm-hmm. And please don't hound them. And I don't need to say this. I'm just saying it to the wall. But like, please, someone who might be thinking of doing this, don't go to a convention they're at with a microphone in their face, hounding them for comments. Don't make this like a friggin' Watergate, investigation. I don't think that's fair to the design team because this wasn't their call either. That's my little spiel I wanted to say. Aaron, this game was really fun. We had good times with this.
We did.
Remember that TFCon when we were like, I wonder if anyone will show up in the room? And then I played Nemesis Prime. No, you played. Was it you playing Nemesis Prime? One of us had Nemesis Prime. I just remember there was like a game with Nemesis Prime and there was a game with Cosmos.
I didn't get a Nemesis Prime until much later. Well, which TFCon? Because I'm also thinking like the one where it was kind of released and then like that little tiny room that was about a quarter of the size that it should have been.
Only Wave 1.
Yeah, that would have been you because I didn't have any SRTs until like at the show.
Okay. Oh no! Wait! No, I didn't have Nemesis Prime. I got him after the show too. I had Shockwave. That's what it was. I was running a Shockwave deck with Battlefield Legend. Just that, yeah, that I just remember that was really cool because it's like other people showed up to play the game and we actually had a fun little tabletop session at TFCon and we played Magic at TFCons and whatnot, and that's fine. I still like, I like the Pauper format a lot. Bringing like an archive full of Pauper decks to that prior TFCon was also fun, but this was really specifically fun, like busting out Transformers cards and like playing Shockwave against your Cosmos, Shockwave messing with your hand and you wanting to build your hand up, and we're like, there's something happening with this game. There's gameplay happening. And then you getting to do that fun, like kind of dinky intro to the game panel at TFCon LA. That was also a lot of fun.
Where the person thought we were like part of the team.
Yeah.
After we said in the beginning that we weren't.
Yeah, and then I was like wanting to just say we are, and then you were too honest. And then also, that was also where they had like that what is it, that guy who was a Magic store runner, and he like came out and was like running events. And I also want to say, I still think Transformers TCG at TFCons is still on. It is on in perpetuity. I will always have decks with me. I've gotten real good at print and play, so I'm going to have player-made cards with me, ready to go as well. I will play you some TCG at any Transformers convention I am at, dear listeners. Aaron as well. All of you. It's on. I'm going to kick all your asses. Because until I have actually played with Wave 5, I'm just going to assume that Wave 5 will make me into a top-level player. I want to build my hubris up so big that you all show up to kick me back down, because then we're going to play some friggin' card games too, and that's my true motive. But yeah, this game also, like, locally, we still have a local scene. We haven't seen each other for half a year, but we still have a local scene, and we are going to friggin' play our Wave 5 cards in person once, at least. Mark our words.
Someday, 2022.
I've cracked some boxes. I have a want list still. I still want to collect the game. I'm hoping that we'll hit a low at some point so I can snap up a few things that I'm missing. It seems like Wave 5 was not as underproduced for Canada as I thought. It still is kind of hard to come by around here, but it has popped up. It has been restocked since the death of the game, at least at one or two stores. So I'm less scared. But yeah, those are some of my fun memories. I could also go into the Energon Invitational before I do. Aaron, you got any other fun memories? I mean, like, you got that whole saga of like trying to get your frigging game stores to stop the game, and then let you buy the game.
Yeah, they thankfully later came around, and I do regret like not buying more out of Wave 5 after the fact. But as soon as it was like said and done, I had the guy that runs it sent me a couple of messages like, "Hey, so I see it's been canceled." It's like, yeah, it's kind of rough, but what are you gonna do? And he's like, "Oh, would you want to buy what we have?" I was like, okay, what stock do you have? And it was like Wave 1 starter, I think it was like the Devastator box set, all of the stuff that they'd opened to try and figure out what the heck the game was out of like Wave 2, and all of their promos.
Offer them $30 and see what they say.
Yeah, I might go back again just to see, like, hey, I know nobody's bought it. Like what do we want to do here? But
if there's promos, it's worth a little haggle, because like I've told you before, like all your chaff you don't want, I will take off your hands when we someday may meet again.
Well, I know, but it was one of those things that was like the first number that they threw out there was like on the idea that the like bulk common and uncommon character card, they're like twice as big as the other cards, that they had some value to them. And it was like, no, they don't. That's like the TCG player still has prices on those.
Also, there's a website called TCG Player with prices on it. Like,
yeah.
I've seen that before. No, I was about to say I've heard and seen that before, except now that I think about it another second, it's you. It's every time you've mentioned that store. That's where I've heard it before. This idea that, like, the big cards must be more expensive because they're one to a pack and bigger.
Yeah.
That's so silly. I mean, I will say also, if you can get like dirt cheap Devastator sets, it's really fun to rip off Joe from Wreck and Rule and like glue together a Devastator combined mode on a big piece of card back. It looks very neat. It's fun to whip out.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it does.
If you get some extra dirt cheap Metroplexes, you can try like cutting them up and folding them like I did. Who's going to stop you? The game's dead. There's no more game police. You can do whatever you want.
You can actually do your fold test to failure.
Well, now I can't now because now I might not be able to replace my folding cards. I still have that Mirage, by the way, the test Mirage. That's a piece I'm going to hang on to for a very long time. I have fond memories of that card. I also want to throw out there, the Energon Invitational and PAX Unplugged was a magical experience. The incredibly gallows humor silver lining of all of this is the next time I can go to a PAX Unplugged, I'm a little excited to actually be able to enjoy PAX Unplugged. Because going there to participate in a multi-day card game tournament, even if I'm only there for day one, was still a 13-hour affair.
Yeah. That's the people that go and grind to get into MTG, like invitational stuff. Seeing what people have done for that in the past.
It was fun for this game because this game in MTG. I'm going to broad strokes this uneducatedly, but also nobody correct me. I don't care. In MTG, you always have to be thinking about the blue players playing all their timing, interrupt cards. TFTCG doesn't have any of that, so I think Transformers was a more feasible game to 13-hour grind because at least it's a linear game. Like you can take your time to think through your moves still to a certain point. You can't just sit there.
But still, the hours are just a thing, regardless. I mean, I've done the 24, 25-hour things. You just lose the ability to think, to do.
That's why you got to be a mastermind like me and decide to use the Octone deck where you don't have to think too much.
Even then, like at some point, your brain juices run out, and you've got 15 minutes from now until when the next round starts, and you have to go get food, use the bathroom, and eat that food because you don't want to be eating a corn dog over top of your cards.
Take it from me, the 37th best TFTCG player in the entire world, ranked. There's just cheat codes. There's cheat codes. Those other 36 players were also, just a little bit, probably they did a little bit more physical training, etc. But listen, I'm the 37th best player, and now no one can ever take that away from me, because there will never be another Energon Invitational.
You sound way too happy that there'll never be another Energon Invitational.
It's because no one can ever take my rank. My rank is set in stone. We thought it was a malleable metal plaque. It turns out it was meteorite stone. Because they can never alter that rank. And obviously, I should mention, there's a lot of ranked tournaments that are being run, that are put on by players, and a player base that is treating those rankings as the new standard. And in fact, my ranting is mine, and no one will back me up. But I don't get a chance to yell like this all that often, But yeah, that tournament was a good time, and those were fun people to hang out with, and I want to see, I know some of you are listening to this, you friggin' Energon Invitational athletes. I want to see some of you in person again, too, because when we're at PAX Unplugged, there might not be an official Energon Invitational, but I'm going to friggin' take you to the underground Energon. We're going to go to the Dark Energon Invitational.
Money games in the lobby?
Friggin' money games in the lobby with my friggin'... I'm going to run OPBL with like 14 fan stratagems, and what are you going to do about it? Nothing.
Say that those aren't legal cards because we're only playing authentic WotC printed things.
Oh,
you degenerate.
I'm sorry.
You.
Are you going to call the police? This is a money game, and I got 4 gangsters holding you down in that chair. Now play your friggin' cards, nerd. This is also a great way to sell people on hanging out with me at PAX Unplugged.
Yeah, probably not, actually.
What do you... Killjoy. Aaron, anything else that we want to talk about with the official Transformers trading card game?
No.
Anything we want to talk about the Transformers trading card game?
I mean,
yes.
you have a list of stuff you sent me. I assume
I do have a list I sent. Yeah,
that some of that's what you're wanting to talk about.
I'm trying to put on a nice little magic, trying to have the doves fly out of my sleeve for the audience. They're all like, "Woo, sparkles!" And friggin'
they've been hearing the cooing and seeing the white stuff fall off the back of your coat the whole time, though.
Oh, that's not. Don't worry, that's mine.
Oh. You need to see a doctor then.
Look, I get really excited talking about my goons that are going to hold people in chairs for me at PAX Unplugged. We're going to play freaking games, and it's going to make me really, really excited to talk about the Transformers trading card game. So we have now, for the most part, it'll come up here and there, but this is kind of the end of Chapter 1 of the Transformers trading card game. It's the end of Chapter 1 of WTF TCG. WTF TFW never had chapters. That's the true spoiler. But Chapter 2 has begun. Players are making their own stuff. And the first thing that I'll lay out, because this seems to be the first question, right? The first question is always, okay, so there's a player set. No. There's a couple player sets. Oh, well, how's anyone going to organize it? I've seen this come up so many times, and I know this is not the consensus mindset. This is my mindset. It doesn't matter that they're not organized, because they're all player-made. So if you're playing this game still, there's two ways you're playing it. You're playing it with your friends, where you all just agree on what folks can use, or you're playing it at an online or eventually in-person tournament, where a tournament organizer worth the remotest sprinkling of salt will tell you what is legal for that tournament. So, like, I know it's a little confusing, and trust me, it is confusing trying to get all these links put together, and I'm going to credit someone hugely in a few seconds as being a huge help with this, and they don't know yet that I'm crediting them. But don't worry about it, because I've seen, worry about, what if there's a million different sets? Then it's then there's a million different sets. So, just play whatever you want. That's the kind of beauty of a game that's in this state now, where people want to actively make stuff. Look at the feedback. Some of this stuff is heavily play tested. The only thing that's important is that you and your friends are playing the card game in a way you want to. When we here in Toronto play, I'm gonna print off all of the Alphatron Protocol stratagems, because that's also a really easy thing to implement into games. By that point, I'll have printed off the ARC's Wave 1, because it'll probably have been released by then. And I think that there's a couple stratagems in there. I saw one for Triptychon. So, I'll have those cards ready to go. When I sit down to play, I'll be like, hey, do you mind if I use these stratagems? Given our player base here, it's probably going to be fine. And then if it turns out it's kind of annoying, if someone says, hey, could you run it without that stratagem? I'm going to say sure, because I'm not a good friend and friendly local player if I say, no, I want to play with this, and if you don't like it, go sit over there, because the player base is frigging 5 people now. So, I've seen this be such a heated conversation point for very valid reasons, but personally, I feel like it's a really obvious scenario. With your friends, you decide what you want to play, and if it's a tournament, they will tell you what the tournament organizer is okay using. And down the road, one thing we're going to talk about, Equidis have mentioned that in the not now, but farther future, if the request is there to figure out how to balance, for example, Alphatron protocols with ARC cards, they'll try to figure it out. It probably won't be balancing the entire sets together. It would probably be selections. That whole thing would be figured out by this Equidis player rules committee. So, in the far-flung future, it is kind of freaky trying to figure out how they're going to do it, but, that's also the far-flung future. I truly don't think this is going to be a huge problem unless we worry too much about it. And so, I don't know. This has been I haven't said this anywhere on, any of the Facebook threads, because I don't think it would add that much, but this is my frigging soapbox, so I'm going to finally unload all of this that's been building up in my head for the last few months. This is where a month and some after the recording I'm going to cut in because it took me that long to get these edits going. But the upside is I can state a few things. Number one, I'm cutting out a little chunk here where we kind of went on and on about collation of fan sets and etc. because a lot of that's still sorting itself out. And I listened through this part and I repeated myself about 50 times. And a lot of this stuff I think has been solved or is being solved for the most part as far as people disseminating what they're working on. The other thing is we're going to talk about some fan sets, and when we recorded this, there were some fan sets that I and Aaron were not aware of. We were, like, fringe aware of Wave X, and we do talk about it, but I had no idea about Eddie's reformatted stuff or the whole Bayformers set. So reformatted and Bayformers are not like mentioned in this at all, unless I had some kind of moment of future sight. So I also want to quickly lay out anything we did miss covering, and I think I might have stated it in the recording. None of that's meant to be a subtweet, a clout pull, or anything like that. Really, this recording was done when I had just had a look at ATP 1 and some ARC stuff. And I'd seen some Wave X stuff on YouTube, and that was kind of the crux of what I'm talking about for the most part, along with just looking in the larger Facebook group. So I'm going to swing us back in here where I believe I'm coming off of yelling about the collation thing. So when I say maybe they don't care about it, it's really maybe one fan card project who made like a handful of Beast Wars characters or something, just wanted to make a Facebook post because they'd made those characters primarily for themselves and their friends and were just sharing a fun creative project. Here we go. And if you don't care, like, you're just making, like, a couple cards for yourself, that's also completely cool. Like, if someone just made some Beast Wars cards, and, like, that was primarily, like, I just want to make some Beast Wars cards, me and my friends are playing it, here's the images. Like, that could be as far as they want to put it, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's fine.
That's true.
Like, it's all there and printable. And if you're really, really deep in the game and you've got, like, folks to play with, like, just download all of it. You know, organize a file structure on your own computer if you can't find one when you get them, and just try it all out. Like, that's the thing I'm kind of hype about once we can all meet up in person again over here in Toronto, is, like, just printing off a bunch of weird stuff off of these, like, you know, not just this Facebook group, but various other Facebook groups and other player groups that are doing things. Like, just give it all a try. Like, someone in this custom card group, some of the newest images in here, someone made friggin' Sideways from Armada. And, like, there's a character card, and, like, I think this is either two stratagems or two head modes. I'm not sure. It's it's two head modes. Yeah, it's two head modes. That's kind of kooky, and, like, that's the thing I'd like to mess with, like, just something weird like that. Or, you know, there's a Wave X battle card that's like, put this on a character, then look at what faction they are. There's like 3 different effects depending on the faction. Like, conceptually, that stuff is kooky, and I'm into that. So, you know, I want to preface everything that we say with all of that stuff, because, like I said, Aaron, that has been building up in my head for a while.
Do you feel better?
I feel a little bit better. I feel like I'm going to get yelled at for saying half of that.
Now that pustule has vented.
I'm gonna get a few new pustules when people they're more like bullet pustules, am I right? When I get humbled for what I dared to say, they can't stop the signal. I was doing a bootleg stream of PulseCon, and I'm still in character for that. PulseCon's a whole other thing. I was bootlegging it for the Europeans. It was the criminal stream. Anyway, Aaron, let's talk about some of this stuff. So, it was more than a couple seconds, but I really want to give a huge shout out to Zero Liddell's Teletran1.net. This is a database site that has various functions beyond being a database site. This is also attempting to collate the most organized and play-tested community-made sets. So, for example, they've currently implemented Alpha Trion protocols, Wave 1, and the ARC Unicron Raid, and what is known of the ARC's Wave 1. And you know, he lays out on here, like, what community cards will Teletran 1 list. And it's like, new cards will be added, but only cards that have been thoroughly play-tested and polished will be added, which I think is completely valid, especially for what I believe is, like, more or less a one-man project. Like, and at a certain point, it's like, you know, yeah, prove that you care enough about your cards to want them to be seen as, like, this is legit, this is something that can hang with the official waves. I think that's valid to have as a, for this kind of site. I think that's a valid restriction the right word? I don't know. That's a valid thing to ask for, you know?
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and also Zero says, if you feel your cards meet the criteria, should be on here, then by all means, I've met Zero. Like, Zero's cool. Zero's not going to friggin' go like, your stuff doesn't appear to be up to par. Unless Zero pulled a real character act on me. Maybe I misread things. But, like, Zero does not strike me as someone who's going to friggin' poo-poo your cards in a way to make you feel bad, you know? This is all supposed to lead towards like talking about the cards, but I want to also highlight there's a really cool function on Teletran1.net, which is a sealed pack generator. I think that a big thing for a game that has ended officially is to start stocking up on cards to make cubes and stuff. Sealed pack generator is like a godsend to me as far as like if say a TFCon is coming someday when we can meet again. I could use that to build like a draft cube, you know, or a 2-pack turbo cube. If someone really wanted to do, I could basically build booster packs that we could use for various different limited functions without having to actually have sealed booster packs. I think that's a really cool function on this site, amongst other things. But continuing to talk about other things that are not the actual player-made cards, Equidis. Equidis is a player rules committee that is community voted and nominated as far as the folks who are in the committee, and they are taking over the rules roundups, basically, because we didn't get enough rules roundups for Wave 5, for instance. Equidis has done a rules roundup for September 14, which is very Wave 5 focused. On a lot of stuff. Like I read through this and I'm like, yeah, it sucks that we no longer have the official rules roundup. So like, and I believe that the WotC roundups are in here too.
Yeah, they saved all the roundups.
Yeah, they saved them because I saw the conversation. It's like, how long will those roundups be accessible?
Yeah.
So Equidis, as far as I know, is a solid organization. I've seen good names on there. I've seen names on there who are also in some of the player or the community-driven projects, which I think will help a lot when it comes to hypothetically working community projects together into a tournament-ready format, if they wanted to do that. But yeah, there are folks who are willing to maintain a somewhat agreed upon organic and continuing balancing of the rules for players, if players want to engage with that. I'll once again, for the last time, I promise, I'll say, if you don't like how any of this sounds, you don't have to use any of this. It's all player made. There's no more official organized play, so you can play the game however you want, you know? But Equidis, I think, is a fantastic thing. I really like that this actually happened. I like that they went with Equidis because I get the reference. Aaron, it's from a comic book.
I know.
Equidis is a supercomputer. Last Stand on the Record is a supercomputer.
Yeah, Last Stand's the thing that I tell everybody to read. So yes, I know.
Yeah. Anyway, Aaron, I'm gonna now that I've laid out all the groundwork, let's talk about a couple of these community-made projects. Let's talk about because it's like alphabetically the first one. The Alphatron protocols. This is Vector Sigma Info. They've created their own player committee to come up with their own cards, and I really like what they're focusing on. The Alphatron protocols Wave 1 is their big focus is coming up with new stratagems. I don't know, I might have misinterpreted this. My understanding is they would like to focus on making stratagems first before they get it anywhere near making characters or battle cards. And the stratagems they're making are specifically done within the spirit of making more characters feel viable on the highest competitive level, which I also love. And this is the part where I'm not sure if this is still the case, but like, if the hypothetical goal of the Alphatron protocols is to make every single character in this game hypothetically playable to at least a certain degree, and if we're going to get into tiers, my dream would be everyone is at least tier 2. Where there's like obviously going to be an upper tier, but like that there are no just trash characters anymore. I am so into this because this is what I wanted from stratagems the moment they were debuted. It is again one of the biggest losses of the death of the game officially is the loss of future stratagems. Yeah, so,
stratagems were definitely seemed like a in-game usable character errata.
Yeah. And
like, you know, Cosmos' stratagem that made him actually a threat rather than like could plink little guys, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, like, for instance, one of the stratagems in here is for friggin' Wave 1 Jazz.
Yeah.
Thank God! You know? Like, and, you know, I'll read it. When it's 1 star, gives Jazz +1 attack and +2 defense. When one of your characters defends and you have this Jazz on the field, any black pips flipped become white pips. And there you go. You fix the problem. You know? And you know, given the folks who are working on the Alphatron protocols, like, they are playtesting the living hell out of this stuff as far as I know, and they've also done a lot of designer commentaries on their decisions made, and like there's running themes. A lot of it is bringing the numbers of Wave 1 character cards up to par with, you know, waves 3 to 5. Because that is the thing I mentioned before, the clear delineation. One of the things you can see at a glance is that the numbers, the attack, health, defense numbers on characters seem to have changed in formula entirely between Wave 2 and Wave 3. So some of these stratagems are just to add health to characters. Like, Demolishers adds 3 health and an effect to him for 2 stars. And so, like, I am excited to play around with these things. And if it's not in the cards for what they want to do, that's cool. But, like, boy, if y'all, Vector Sigma, if you guys are planning to stratagem just about everyone, you would have my attention, let me tell you. I think it is a little out of the question to ask for stratagems on literally every character pre-Wave 3, plus the ones who might need it, but the more the merrier, in my opinion. It just makes me really happy to see any old card get a second lease on life with this kind of stuff. So that is one of those projects. Aaron, they got a thing here of, you can download, you know, the various cards. Wheeljack stratagem is double-sided, which also confused me for a sec. I was like, uh-oh, they double posted because I didn't read the text.
So is Bumblebees.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them have a stratagem that, like, begins on one side and has like a one-off effect that you can do, and then you don't get the special benefit as the memory device of have I done thing or not.
Bumblebees is not side by side in formatting in the columns like Wheeljack, so I just didn't notice. I you know, obviously at this point you can tell I haven't like gone deep into reading through all these yet. Because I've also what this year has done is a lot of things. One of the things this year did was have me not keep up super well with the TCG after the launch of Wave 5. So this is my first time reading through some of these things. I did read some of the designer commentaries, more so for the intents rather than the like straight up meat of the cards, since it was going to be such a long time since I messed with these in person. But, you know, there's one for friggin' Darkmount, and I love Darkmount. There's one for Megatron Living Weapon. Who needs it? You know? Mm-hmm. So this is really up my alley. And there's one for Sludge. That's one of the major community projects that's out there. Aaron, you got any other stuff you want to throw out about the ATPs?
No, other than, you know, again, kind of what you've gone through is, you know, this is I think like a good, like an idea of a balance set on things. It is a bummer that, like, I know that there have to be bad characters so that you know what good is. I'm not saying on the good versus evil spectrum. I'm saying on the very playable cards versus not very playable cards.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of rough when, you know, for character cards at least, since like you get one in a pack. It's that, I think, kind of changes where some of that should be aimed, and seeing like opportunities for some of these cards are like rares and super rares that they are updating, you know, the things that should have been better out of the gate, little, or maybe not necessarily better, but more competitive out of the gate can get that knob turned a little bit.
Yeah, and it, you know, it's stuff like every character choice here you can see, right? Like Demolisher, a tank. The tanks, in Wave 1 were really cool, but had almost no health, because that was the design idea of the tanks at the time, and it didn't obviously didn't stand the test of time in the 1 year that we're talking about.
They were supposed to be high defense but low health, and then shortly after that they came out with a way to put Pierce against anything and everything, and it's like, oh, turns out.
Yeah. So Demolisher and Darkmount in here are like, they are tanks with cool effects that need help. And thankfully, for instance, Demolisher was also a very low star card, so giving him a 2-star stratagem is not ridiculous. It just means he's like, what is it, 8 stars now? That's fine. That works.
Yeah.
It's been so long, I actually forgot if he's 6 or 7 stars, so my apologies.
I can't remember.
But also like one for Metroplex. Metroplex is an entire deck type who is from Wave 1. So he still could hang a little bit in like casual play, and he could surprise you. But I'm glad there's a stratagem for him, especially because it's a no-star stratagem. He was literally the case of like Metroplex was just this weird character who was always in this strange Wave 1.2, 0.3 void, where he could never have stars added to him. He could never have other double pimp cards added to him. So, the idea of creating a stratagem for him, I think, is fascinating. Because it has to... And I think I saw this in some of the articles. Like, if there's no stars, then it has to be an effect that has a certain ceiling as far as what it's doing.
Yeah.
But, Wheeljack from Wave 1, Jetfire from Wave 1, Jazz, holy crap. Super Rare Bumblebee, like, getting a little boost so that he can hang as a super rare who would feel cool to play. I really like the article I read about Inferno, because it's like, Inferno in Wave 1 was, he was kind of a powerhouse, and then he kind of got nullified as the game went on. So this brings him back to some usability, the Dinobot stuff. Megatron Living Weapon just being like, this was supposed to be the sibling card to Battlefield Legend. So, this one is just +3 health, and weapons on him cannot be scrapped by your opponent's cards. So it's like, that's cool, because that means he can hang to a degree now. He gets a health boost that he needs, and he gets an effect that, if I recall correctly, Living Weapon was all about putting weapons on him. Because he could put weapons in his other slots, I believe. I can't
remember which Megatron it was that did that. Yeah.
Me and Aaron haven't played this game in a long time.
Yeah.
We need to freaking get on Octagon. Octagon's not the only... I should also mention, is Octagon, Tabletop Simulator, and Webcam Play are all viable things that me and Aaron have not been able to do. That I at least really want to do.
Aaron wants to. So just looked it up. When you flip to his alt mode, you can return a weapon from your scrap pile to your hand. On the bot mode, this can be upgraded with a weapon in his armor and or utility slots.
I was right. So yeah, this is a stratagem. This adds a star to him, but it means that those weapons are much harder to take away. So it enhances his function. I like the ideas on these things. And I like that they're stratagems. Fan stratagems make me happy. However, that's not the only fan group. There's also the Arc, who have got a couple things at. One of these things, boy howdy, is this up my alley. So the Arc is a group that is built on... It's not literally just these 3 groups, but it's these 3 groups, people from these 3 groups and other community members. But it includes folks from Blues on Attack, Wreck and Rule, and Powered by Primus. Powered by Primus seems like their real big push was the Unicron raid. I watched a stream of the Unicron raid, and I hung around in the chat, and I was maybe being a gremlin in the chat, because I tend to do that if it's me in a chat and it's not my stream. But everyone was very friendly and patient with me. The Unicron raid is friggin' fascinating. It's a 3-stage raid where there is a Unicron player playing against 2 other players. And the Unicron player can, like, this is a whole print and play thing where there's a bunch of different character cards and a number of battle cards and I believe stratagems that you need to kind of collate together. But the Unicron deck, as I understand it, is customizable. It's here we go. There's a deck list provided, or the player can build a 32 card deck. And then in phase 2, 9 cards are added. In phase 3, another 9 cards are added for a total of 50 cards. It's really cool. Like phase 1, you're taking on Scourge and the Sweeps. and there's a couple of sweeps. And through all of these, there's 2 phases of you fighting. First, you fight Scourge in the sweeps, then you fight Galvatron and Cyclonus. As that's happening, Unicron in planet mode is on the board building up chaos counters. Unicron can be attacked in planet mode, but like Unicron is building up chaos counters, and if Unicron has 20 chaos counters in planet mode, Unicron wins. Full stop. However, this is what I think was really cool. Unicron is building up chaos counters, and you're trying to fight his heralds while trying to stall the growth of his chaos counters. In phase 3, when he transforms to robot mode, you can start spending the chaos counters to do a number of different effects. I just think that's really friggin' cool as a mechanic. I think it's very thematic. You're fighting against the first wave of heralds, the second wave of heralds. Unicron is building his power during this. You're trying to prevent him from building up too much power. And when his heralds are wiped out, Unicron transforms, and instead of using that power to try to just win the game, Unicron goes like, all right, well now I'm going to use all that power to frigging murder you. It's super cool. I am incredibly excited to play this. Aaron, you haven't had to look at these before, so hopefully that explained a little bit of what's going on with these cards.
Yeah. So they've got at least that raid up on Dropbox, and I have flipped through it. Mm-hmm. It does explain more than I had kind of gotten the gist out of it until I went and like read the PDF at the end. I feel like Unicronian shouldn't be on there as a name, but whatever.
Aaron doesn't like the word Unicronian, and I don't care about it either way. So I'm not like going to argue with him.
Say Herald or Unicron. It works. It's better.
I'm fine with it.
It's not as mouth and marblies, but again, like that's the smallest nitpick, right?
It's weird how Aaron just freaking tried to have their entire Dropbox deleted for the word Unicronian. I can't believe
DCMA is coming. But no,
you don't even own Transformers. Aaron's just like, listen, as the sole copyright holder of Unicron, I want this taken down unless they change the word. If anyone from Powered by Primus is listening, this is a bit, by the way.
Yeah,
this is a bit.
But no, it looks really interesting. This is something that I would love to get the chance to play at a convention. Especially because if you've got like, it's always the kind of awkward thing when like people are busting out cards and there's an odd number of people.
Yeah.
Especially since there was never any sort of like multiplayer format that was put together. Other than, I don't know, you can try.
Yeah.
From the actual official people. I don't know, you can try, you smartasses.
Like in here in Toronto,
see how easy it is.
I think I might have mentioned it before, but in Toronto we tried 2v2, and we tried it just 2v2, and you can attack anyone on the other team, and that doesn't work. So multiplayer in this game needs some tweaks, and I know some people have figured out before the game's cancellation some tweaks already, and I'm hoping that that's another thing that arises out of player-made stuff, is coming up with rule sets for multiplayer. Or,
I could see like maybe an Emperor format style of thing, if you ever played MTGs in Emperor format.
The problem was also we played 2v2, but each player got a turn, and that proved to eventually be a little unbalanced. If it basically meant eventually one team has too much momentum. And then eventually one player can't have turns anymore that are remotely worthwhile. So there's ways to fix that, I think. But yeah, this allows you to have a 2v1. Also, like the Unicron player, Unicron is a tricky encounter, and this goes in multiple directions. There are some decks where if you just pull out a deck, like I'm going to play this as one half of the team against Unicron, you're going to get frigging obliterated if you have the wrong deck against this. However, some folks who have been playing this in the Facebook group also said if you really want a power game against Unicron, there are some linear strategies you can use to just dominate Unicron. And I believe the response I saw, which I agree with, is like, true. But the spirit of the Unicron raid encounter is also to allow for just weirder decks to have a place to exist and a weirder playstyle to exist. And balancing Unicron to hang with top tier competitive decks, I would assume would then make weirder decks just unable to even go near him, and that might violate the spirit of the whole project
Yeah,
of the raid deck.
and again, it comes to the same thing that's been said by you this whole time. It's about finding a fun way for people to play with things. If somebody's like, "Hey, I've got this Unicron thing. Let's have fun," like trying stuff out, turning around, twirling your mustache, and coming out with this. I built this deck specifically to destroy this thing you want to have fun with. Is kind of I believe that's called a dick move.
Yeah, like that is I think I might have said that even during the chat on that stream, but I truly can't remember anymore. But I feel like I've said somewhere the scenario of like, if you're in a small play group, if there's 3 of you in the room, and one person is like, I built this so it obliterates Unicron deck, then if it's 3 friends, you say to your friend after you play once and see that it's true, you're like, that's cool. Could you use a different deck now, please?
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, you know, I've seen that conversation about games before. It's like, well, I play to win. And it's like, well, yeah, that is the purpose of a competitive game.
Yeah.
But among friends, at a certain point, if everyone else would really like you to play something else, then as their friends, it, to me, is not a big ask to play something else. If you've played something enough that they're asking you to play something else.
And like anything, it comes down to, it's a game. I've heard plenty of times people talking about stuff like EDH in Magic the Gathering. You know, people coming with top tier decks to just Friday Night Magic, and it's like, no, you pulled out the deck that's obviously like a couple grand because you've got something net built with all the high end cards in it. I've got some freaking jank I put around every. It's goblins, but every one of them's wearing a hat. Like we're playing 2 different games here that just happen to use the same system.
This is the power levels thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's always going to be a discussion. And if people keep being jerks, don't play games with them.
Yeah, and with the Unicron raid especially, like this is not for tournament play. It's a 2v1, right? Mm-hmm. I do think there could be a fun way to come up with a tournament that runs like this, kind of like Android Netrunner, where every player has a player deck and a Unicron deck, and then your role is like randomly determined each game, so that you have to plan around being Unicron and around being one of the 2 players. And then I think if there are decks that can obliterate Unicron, you create a restricted or ban list based on that for the sake of not screwing over the Unicron player. Mm-hmm. I think that could actually be really cool, but you know, that's a very far-flung future kind of idea too, I think. I also just love the card design in this. Like, I like the names a lot, like Leashed Will, and there's one I really like. Insignificance. I think that card is friggin' cool. During the stream that I watched, one of these cards had a placeholder name, and I remember saying, please don't ever change the name. But they clearly changed it because none of these seem to have placeholder names anymore. And I can't remember which card it was. I think it was an upgrade. And it was called, like, upgrade name. And I was like, oh no! Unicron's equipped upgrade name! And I really like that idea. But I also have a certain sense of humor. So yeah, the Unicron thing I think is super cool. It took me until this morning to fully recall and actually commit to memory that it's part of the ARC project, because when I was collating links for Aaron, originally Unicron project powered by Primus was a separate thing from the ARC on my links list until thanks to Zero Liddell and Teletran1.net, I understand better now that it's part of the ARC project. And then when I read that, I remembered that I think it was Wes in the stream, literally said to me on the stream that it was in the ARC project. And then I forgot. But you know what? It's been a year, right?
It has been a year.
It has been a year. That's not all that they have, though. The ARC also has actual cards. They have a Facebook group with stuff listed, but also on Teletran1.net, you can look up some listings too. If I go to Stratagem Collection, I hover over Wave, and then I click on ARC 1, I can see the Triptychon Stratagem Scour the Area. Triptychon needs a stratagem. So, I think I saw this on the Facebook group too. I was hyped to see this. It's just, your deck can have up to 2 extra stars of white pip cards once per game. Once per game, at the start of your turn, you can deploy a character from Triptychon. And it's like, yes, please, Like, it's a way to mitigate the bad luck if you just can't draw the freaking deployment cards, thus deactivating your entire goddamn deck. We had a whole thing here in Toronto where me and Eric tried so hard to make Triptychon work. We tried so hard. So the ARC is doing stuff like, they've also got character cards and battle cards happening. And I'm gonna go to the Facebook group, see if that's all easier to see, because I just joined that Facebook group because I'm on the ball. And you know what? The ARC, here you go. Perfect example. I went to their Facebook group. I went to the media tab. I went to albums, and they have an album for battle cards, an album for stratagems, and an album for characters. Excellent. And then Facebook is glitching out when I try to click on the albums. But that's Facebook's problem, not theirs. Anyway, Aaron, I don't know on Teletran1.net if you click around a little bit and then filter for Arc 1 if you're seeing anything else in there. The Triptychon stratagem was really my big thing I wanted to highlight. There seem to be 3 characters in here as well. One of them is Countdown. Countdown seems to be happy to partner with Omega Supreme. That's very on topic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they have a Jazz. Cool. Like I said, I haven't kept up with all this.
Yeah, I'm actually new to all of these here, so I'm still waiting on one of them to get allowed in.
Allowed in?
Yeah, because they're private groups. So,
yeah. I joined. I put in the request to join like this morning, so I hedged my bet that at some point someone would see that. But yeah, like Countdown, for instance, your starting star limit's increased by 2 if Omega Supreme is on your starting team, and this has stealth while you have Omega Supreme on the battlefield. And this is Countdown was packaged with Siege Omega Supreme. I like that thematic little tie.
That's thematic.
Hell yeah! And then they got a Jazz. Jazz is Out of Sight Dynamite Lieutenant. That's excellent. So, like the spirit behind these cards, like I haven't read very deep into any of the text, nor have I got any real concept of how that would, play with other cards, but the spirit and theme is shining through a lot of this stuff, which I'm really digging. In part because, as far as I can take from the community, like a big push right now is trying to bring other cards into balance with the what sounds like balance damage that was done by Wave 5, which I have no hands-on experience with yet, so I'm only parroting sentiments I've seen from large segments of the player community. But so that's Alphatron Protocols, that's the ARC. We've also talked about Teletran 1, we've talked about Equidis. There's one other player project I've seen, which is Wave X, which is based more so, it seems, out of the the custom card Facebook page. Wave X, this is me kind of digging around, and I might just be missing stuff, right? Wave X currently seems to only exist in spoilers on YouTube videos and kind of peppered into the other Facebook groups. And I don't know if I've got to dig around and see if there's albums somewhere or anything, but we're not going to go super deep on Wave X beyond a couple characters, just because it's all buried into YouTube videos that we haven't looked at yet. Mm-hmm. But the newest one seems to be Nightbeat, and Nightbeat's got, the Autobot car. When you flip to car mode, you can name a battle card, then your opponent reveals their hand and scraps all cards with that name. That seems on topic with Nightbeat the Detective. When you flip to robot mode, you can scrap an upgrade from your hand to scrap a secret action your opponent has in play. I think that's a cool idea for an effect to kind of fight a secret action. And again, it's in character with Nightbeat. His character numbers are pretty low because he's also 6 stars and has these effects on him. I don't really know formulas for what stars are worth as well as some of the other folks working on this stuff, but it doesn't seem like awful. It seems low to me for the effects, except that his numbers are also low. He's got 9 health, and low
he doesn't have a lot of health or attack or defense. For 6 stars. Yeah, that's that's almost the Micromaster size. So
yeah, but also maybe that fits the balanced tone of what Wave X is, which I don't know that well.
Yeah.
But again, like, this is another project that is player run that seems to be aiming to create a set of downloadable printable cards. And like, Aaron, you spotted that they have like Rack and Ruin.
Yeah, there was another video where they have Rack and Ruin where One side is rack and the other side is ruin.
I like that idea. That's kind of cool.
That's a neat idea. So that one is 12 stars. The rack side is 6-1 with 15 health. The ruin side is 6-2, sharing that 15 health. Rack is the effects on this card change depending on how many times you flipped this character this turn. 0 bold 1, 1 bold 2, 2 bold 3, 3 plus bold 4. And then the ruin side is when you flip to this mode, do damage to an enemy equal to the number of wreckers you began the game with.
Again, that's kind of cool as far as obviously rack and ruin are wreckers. That's encouraging you to build a wreckers deck thematically. That makes sense. The rack side, that's a cool effect. The only thing that I'm looking at is specifically it's bot 1 mode and bot 2 mode. That means they don't have an alt mode, which means that if you're going to do multiple flips, it's got to be based on cards that specifically are going to let you flip to a bot mode.
Yeah.
Which I am assuming would be a sort of a self-balancer on whatever they would be up to. Clearly they're aggro, right? 6 attack and building bold. So, again, I think it's really cool in that it's also thinking a little bit outside the box because it's rack and ruin, and Wreckers Rack and Ruin don't really have an alt mode. So this is a way to solve that. They did not get the upgrade yet that they got when they appeared in Cyberverse, where they have a proper alt mode.
I was going to say, this one right here does.
Yeah, exactly. The physical Rack and Ruin that one can actually purchase as a toy has an alt mode, and I also think it's an okay alt mode myself. But yeah, they got, in that same video for I'll go grab that battle card since we alluded to it before. But Energon Cubes is a utility that's orange-blue for 1 star. And it's once during your turn, you can scrap a card from your hand to move this to another one of your characters. When this is attached to a character, it gains an effect based on its faction. So Autobots repair 2, Decepticons get +2 till end of turn. Mercenaries can do 2 damage to an enemy Autobot or enemy Decepticon. So another interesting idea. It's a modular card based on whatever faction it goes on to. The only thing about this one that if one were to get nitpicky is the text formatting so far is a little bit crowded, and it looked a lot scarier to me at first glance than the card actually is. Because it has a lot of text for a reason, right? That's not a problem. It's just at a glance I saw paragraph and then I saw 3 bullet points basically underneath, and I was like, oh no. But it's not that complicated. It's just what faction is the character this goes on to. But the reason I brought that up was to segue into one other thing, which is Adam Edgmond has got a font pack up that is basically designed to allow you to make your cards look more like official TCG cards by replicating the fonts therein. And I think that's also super freaking cool to provide. Adam Edgmond is old school fandom, in my opinion, because I know him from many years ago, at some of my first BotCons. And so that font pack I think is invaluable. I think it's going to be a boon to anyone who's trying to put any of this stuff together. And please hit that up too if you are going to try to do your own little projects. And that's kind of where we're at with the game right now, right? Mm-hmm. We got some heavily play-tested player-made stuff. We've got some more random player-made stuff, and we got everything in between. It might be a little bit overwhelming. But, just if everyone's talking about someone's project, go download the project. All of this stuff is just PDFs and image files. Just make a folder, right? Start collecting it up. I've learned the ways of print and play, and one of the ways of print and play is just make folders for everything and stock up on it. And then just print off whatever you think looks cool. I am excited to see where this all goes. And I am so excited at the idea that the player community can keep this all going for a very long time. I think there will be some drop off, and I don't mean that as a doomsaying thing. I just mean that as realism, right? It's not feasible to me that there's going to in perpetuity be between 3 to 12 notably and large player projects happening all the time. But as they continue happening, and as the folks working on them get more and more experience working on them and establishing more and more of their own personal flavor, and if they really hit with groups of players who like using those cards, this could go on for quite a while, because that's the story of several other dead games that are still going on to this day. There's the old Star Wars card game, Android Netrunner, Warhammer 40K's card game under FFG, whose name I can't quite remember, because every Warhammer 40K name is just like Warhammer : scary word, and I can't remember what the 40K card game was called. But that one has also got multiple player sets, or player-made sets out there. So if you are someone who wants to get into this game, there has never been a better time, because if you're in America, some of them cards have gotten dirt cheap. And also, if you have a printer, you can just print off cards, because no one cares. Well, okay, some people care, but a lot of them got to stop caring, for crying out loud. It's not the best time to get into the game, in that the game is technically dead officially, but it's also the best time to get into the game because the barrier to entry has been removed. So I'm happy to say WTF at TCG is not dead, because we got plenty of new stuff to talk about for quite a while. Aaron, how are you feeling? Like, obviously, like, there's a lot to take in as far as like what the game is now, and very much without any kind of collation, it can be pretty spooky. But how are you feeling about like all of this stuff that's happening by the players?
So I'm really glad to see it that the people that are very excited about the game are continuing it in some form or fashion. There's a part of me that I know like is not going to be a thing that'll ever happen. I kind of wish that, and not being in all those Facebook groups yet, even though I've also put in applications on a couple since we started the podcast.
So that's like, about 90 minutes ago.
Yeah, thereabouts.
People are having dinner.
They're incredibly slow on a Monday evening. I don't know what they're doing.
I've been waiting 90 minutes to get into Facebook. Don't they know?
The guys on the Ark were fast. I don't know about these other jerk bags, though. No. Again, it's a bit. I'm sorry.
Wait, did the Ark let you in already? The Ark let you in already? I had to wait more than 90 minutes. I actually don't know how long I had to wait. I actually might have only waited 60. I can't remember anymore. It was this morning.
But the point I was going towards is just, again, for like, having everything kind of in one location, and my watch just notified me that I was too loud. Thanks, watch. That having it all in one location, or trying to find, if it's one of the groups that's already kind of doing that, to say like, hey, what like format do we need to have, and then also having the font pack that makes it look closer. There was one that I saw that I think was in the generic Facebook group at one point in time. There were some of them that was like the purple was the wrong color. Now, granted, we've kind of had 3 different purple colors printed with the cards, so
it's on topic.
That's a different error. But just like the reason why style and design guides get out there is because when something's not in that guide, it really stands out. So, just getting one place that gets them all together, making it all look good together, and for the people that want to play with that, making it a whole lot easier to say, okay, anything that's on this website is good because those guys have done a significant amount of play testing. So that one's cool, but these other ones, sure, you can come and play with them, and that's fine. Those look like you just took your 4-year-old cousin's mad scribblings of a card and put it in a sleeve. How about not? To help kind of guide and curate. That was the word that I was going for, to kind of curate it a little bit better.
What Aaron's saying is, if you're going to play against him with these cards, don't print them off, write them down, and just rip the paper up and stuff it in the sleeves, because that's going to mess with him as a player. And that's part of the psychological warfare the competitive card game.
Well, depending on if it's a battle card, then that could easily be considered a marked card.
No,
If it's a random piece of paper jammed into a sleeve, yeah, you're going to be able to tell. You're going to be able to tell when you're drawing a normal card and the random piece of paper jammed in a sleeve. Judge.
Well, listen. Well, actually, let me first off. Well, actually, secondly,
Judge.
Actually, if they've sleeved it properly for a proxy card in an opaque back sleeve, as long as it's not literally jutting out the top, it should not be detectable.
You can tell that thickness difference. There are people that could tell the thickness difference between the foil Energon edition cards and the non-foil ones because they didn't do the magic foiling. They did whatever their surface foiling was, and it made them thicker.
The laminate foiling or whatever. Oh no, with print and play, the whole there's ways you can keep your print and play cards to a similar thickness. And I know it's a dirty word. Double sleeving is a way to balance out thicknesses. And I'm not saying you double sleeve the proxies, but in place of an inner sleeve, you have the proxied card on a piece of paper slid over top of a real this is also I maybe didn't make this clear. When I say you jam your handwritten proxy, you're jamming that piece of paper over top of another battle card that is also then in the sleeve.
So then it's extra thick.
Well, no, it's one piece of paper plus a battle card. Then your real battle cards are double sleeved. So they have an extra layer of sleeve around them in place of the extra layer of paper. Or you just have a bunch of blank pieces of paper the same size as your proxies slid behind the battle cards because you're using opaque sleeves, so you wouldn't be able to tell. There's ways to do this. People have been doing this in Magic for years and years because people want to play Magic formats, and at a certain point, they just want to play them, so they just print off the cards that are $5,000. And it's just about maintaining your thicknesses through all your sleeves. Is doable because we have done it here in Toronto while the game was live when we wanted to test out decks and we couldn't afford triple copies of All Out Attack. So it's a thing. It's doable. I was also going to say when you were talking about collation and I was talking about kind of the overwhelming nature of all this, I realized while you were talking something is missing that is making this a lot spookier, which is in-person play. It's a lot more daunting to try to take in all this information and store all of it yourself. When you are able to play with your local friends and player groups, once again, you just show up to play and then someone has interesting print and played cards, then you go and print them yourself and start messing with them too. You get introduced to some of these projects by your friends introducing them to you. There's an organic thing, I think, that can happen that currently is not on offer for a lot of the player base in various different countries. That eventually, ideally, will become on offer again. So, for instance, I go to play with local Toronto folks. I bust out an Alphatron Protocol stratagem, or I bust out a character card from the Arc, like a deck built on Arc Wave 1 cards. And someone's like, "Oh, that was cool. I didn't know about this." And I show them, like, "Yeah, it's this, and this. You can go download these cards from here." And then the next time we meet up, they're like, "Hey, I was messing with these other Arc cards," or "Hey, I found these Alphatron Protocol stratagems. Can I try playing an ATP stratagem against your Arc deck?" And I'll be like, 100%. Let's see what happens when we bang the community sets together. The organic nature of this stuff spreading out is going to blossom when we are able to actually all meet and play in person again. I think, anyway. And in that scenario, you don't got to worry too much about knowing about all of it because you'll discover it through your fellow players. So... Mm-hmm. There is a bright future that does require the brighter future of being able to all hang out and play games together again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. The last thing I'll say, so that is basically our podcast about the end of the TCG and the beginning of the TCG. WTF at TCG. Whenever we talk about Transformers TCG, be it memories of the game, a dedicated podcast to that, or talking about player-made stuff, it is the WTF at TCG that you always knew. But because I started posting this thing on YouTube immediately as of the beginning of it, I want to leave the window open to occasionally use this podcast specifically just on YouTube. I won't upload these to TFW because I don't think that's fair to the hosting. But I'm also going to have some WTF at Tabletop Cool Games podcasts at some point if I get my druthers and also get my garbage together, because I would like to record some podcasts about other games too that I think would be fun. So that's something I want to do with the name WTF at TCG. I don't know what, and I have no plans, and I don't know whenever I'll do it. But I wanted to just say that here to nudge open the door. To use this to talk about other tabletop stuff that I find fun. For instance, let's say hypothetically in the future, Aaron has played a whole bunch of Jumpstart, and I've played a bunch of Jumpstart as well with friends who have it or whatever. If we both played a bunch of Jumpstart and want to just talk about it a bit, maybe we'll talk about Jumpstart, for instance. I pick up Robo Rally all of a sudden and get way into it. Maybe me and Aaron talk about Robo Rally, or I introduced some friends to the Garfield Games West Kingdom series, and then we played a bunch of it. Maybe we play through the campaign thing that's coming out later on, and then we sit down and record a podcast about that. That might happen too. Who knows?
I saw somebody succumbing to the Among Us frenzy that's going on, trying to make a board game version.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
that could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be kind of cool.
It looked like it's a little bit of the first of the Resistance.
Oh,
where it's like, as people are doing things, it looked like it was you'd put in cards face down, and you have tasks that you have to do and whatever to try and still have something's going on. I'm still not quite sure how I done goofed and murdered one person while there was somebody else in the room too aspects is going on, but
I mean, there are games. I mean, it wouldn't probably be literally Among Us, but there are games about, for instance, I think what was it, Nemesis is a game where you're a bunch of people on a spaceship with xenomorph style aliens on it, but also you all have secret agendas, and some of them are literally go kill this other player. So it's there is a traitor amidst the crew. That stuff exists. That could be, that'd be really cool. That'd be fun. Among Us has been fun. We've been playing Among Us, by the way. But yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of really, I mean, this year I got way deeper into tabletop with a very solo-oriented flavor, but a lot of that stuff is translatable to multiplayer when someday we can do that, or I just make the time to hang out on Tabletop Simulator with folks. So hey, you know what, hey, if you got this far and you're one of the folks on my YouTube channel who hates it when I talk about the TCG, number one, the TCG dying officially, we're still going to talk about the TCG. Number two, I'm going to talk about other board games and tabletop games. And number three, if you hate all that and you listen to nearly 2 hours of a TCG podcast, then you're an enigma. Aaron, thanks for joining me. I've wanted to record this for a while, and I'm actually glad that we ended up waiting this long because we had more to talk about than just the bummer topic.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening wherever you are listening to this. If you're on TFW, then you know where to look. But if you're not on TFW, these podcasts in audio form are on WTF.tfw2005.com, specifically when they're about Transformers stuff. So check it out there if you want audio format, MP3s, etc. If you're listening to the audio one and you want to run it off YouTube, because that's easier and that's just a thing people do, WTF at TCG is always on YouTube, so you can hit it up over there too, if you want to. And we'll talk to you later. Take it easy as best you can, stay safe as best you can, and find some solace in stuff like a Transformers TCG or a tabletop game. It's one thing that can be a real anchor to a very hard year. So I hope that if you are into this kind of podcast, that's the kind of thing that's helped you out. Anyway, I can drag this out even longer, but I won't. We'll talk to you later. Take it easy.
What the f***'s going on down there?